Hey everybody, we're going to cut foot loose tonight, I guess. So welcome to Saturday night with Donnell and Megan.
Hey everybody.
We are going to have another fun project tonight, and if you haven't taken down the download, if you go to So Steady or even on Westerly by me, this download is available. It's 8 pages tonight, and it's going to give you the instructions you need to complete this project. So these are the templates that we're going to use tonight. We're going to be sticking with the sampler set. We're going to use an 8-point crosshair ruler, and we're going to be using the CircleWorks outer rim tool. Now you'll also need anything, you're going to need something to measure with, so I'm going to use my centering ruler, and those are the tools that we're going to need outside of something to mark with. So some of you were with us last week, actually a lot of you were with us last week. Thank you for joining us. And we did a project on a 12-inch square. Well, I'm going to use that same 12-inch square. I had some more fabric, and so what I've got is my 12-inch square here, and I have mitered my corners. As you can see down here in the corner, this is mitered. And if you don't know how to do this, I have a tutorial over on my YouTube page that tells you how to use my Quick Easy Miter binding tool. Several of you won this last week, and hopefully you've received those by now. And the tutorial is going to get you through how you're going to get these perfect miters with still having a square, no little cupping here, and this is going to lay nice and flat. So hopefully some of you have had a chance to use that. If not, stop over to my website because I'm the designer of that tool. So I have a 12-inch finished square here, meaning from side to side it measures 12 inches. Now what we're going to be doing tonight, we call it to TempLee or not to TempLee. I'm going to prepare it as if we're going to TempLee. So I have already fused onto the back, and the cool part of this is when you're doing something like this, I'm not going to be TempLee cutting out in my borders, so all I did was put on a 12-inch square. So I laid that down on there. You can see that shine. So now I can peel away. You can see my peeker fabrics underneath here. And let's just tear this back, or pull this back, I guess is what I need to say. And so now my project will be able to be TempLeed. So I guess I kind of gave away that I'm probably going to TempLee this, but we can always change our minds. It's just fabric, you know. So what I've got laid there is I have my front with the borders stitched on, and I mitered the corners. I have fused my Fusible Heat and Bond light onto the back of just the center square. It's not on the borders. Then I've got my piece on the back of that. It's the same size. I think it measures 19 by 19. And that is my TempLee. And I ran it out into the borders because I didn't want to take the chance of not having it down in the corners. And so then I've laid it on top. I'm using Fusible Fleece. And I have put that onto my backing. So I'm going to be bringing this around and making that my border. It won't be that wide when I'm finished. So I just want to take a little peek here and make sure I've got it centered on there. I like to follow grain lines, and so I want to make sure that's all centered. Looks like it is. I'm going to check right here just by measuring. And we got 2 inches there and 2 inches there, so we're plenty good. So now everything is ready for me to start marking. And so what I'm going to do first is I am going to refer you to this handout. Now if there's any supplies that you need from So Steady, again, I have that grocery shopping cart right there. All you have to do is while you're on your computer or on your phone, you can, iPad, whatever, you click on that and it's going to take you right to the So Steady site so that you can do your ordering. Looks like we might have a question.
No, it's not a question, but if they haven't had a chance to download this, I also just pinned the link to the handout and the shopping cart at the top of this thread.
Okay, so it's pinned there if you need the link to the handout, and you can maybe even download this while we're working. So I've got the supplies you're going to need. I've got the supplies for the fabric there, and I also put optional is that picker fabric. Now, if you're not going to use the picker fabric, in other words, you're not going to do TempLee, you don't need the Heat and Bond Light.
There is a question from Eileen, I believe is how you say her name. What is the difference between fusible fleece and fusible batting?
Fusible fleece is usually a little bit firmer in its construction. So when I'm finished with this, I'm going to have something that lays a little firmer. I like to do that when I'm using it for any kind of table placemats, candle mats, table runners, things that I want to have a little bit more structure to. So that's when I use this. This one is actually even a little bit more firm than fusible fleece. This one has a little bit more texture. I think this one is the Thermolam. Am I correct, Megan?
Yes.
This is a little bit more firmer than that. So this is the Thermolam. It's just still a Pellon product. It's just even a little bit firmer. So that's the difference. You can get, now there are a lot of fusible battings out there, so you can get a lot, you have a lot of different options. So once you play around with it, you're going to find your favorites. And I will tell you that I love to use the fusible fleece and the fusible Thermolam just for that reason, because a lot of my samples, obviously, hopefully, maybe in the future, will be back in a suitcase. And so for that reason, it makes them easier to travel. They stay nicer, and they don't wrinkle as much. So just a little hint, when I do this, this fusible is up. And the reason for that is when I'm finished with this, it's going to get cut up next to here. And then I will do my turning of my binding. It's my faux binding because I will be turning that around to the front. Some of you have my Quick Easy Miter binding tool, and I hope you're learning how to use that and that you're loving it, because it does make it really nice for turning that and not having to do an add-on binding. So without further ado, let's get back, and we need to find the center of this piece right here. And obviously there are a lot of ways to find the center. I find that the easiest way is to use a long ruler so that you can just measure from corner to corner, and it makes it so much easier then to be able to place your template in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to mark that long line. I'm going to lay my ruler on there. I don't know if you, yeah, you can see that up there. And then I'm coming to this corner right down here. But all I'm really going to mark is right here in the center. Now again, for those of you that haven't been following us and are new to us, welcome, welcome. And you'll find that this is a fun party every Saturday night. We have a lot of friends here. But you may not be aware of, this is a Frixion pen. And this Frixion pen is a fine line. And what we're doing today, I don't want very heavy lines. I want to be able to be right on my line. And so to be able to use that Frixion marker, I should never have said pen, you guys. It's a marker. And to be able to use that, I have put on this 2 layers of best press. So I put best press on, pressed this whole thing, put another layer of best press, and pressed it again. Now, I use the misting bottles. My best press is in a misting bottle like this because it gives a finer, better coverage, and it uses less of the best press. So definitely take the time to search out those. Again, if you can't find them, check out my website. And so what I'm going to do is I am going to use my crosshair grid, and I am going to center it. And even with just that little tiny X on there, I have marks on here that I can center everything up. So I'm going to go ahead and mark this one, and all I need are the pluses for what I'm going to do. So you can see there that it's marked. I'm going to use the outer edge to make all of these marks. So I'm going to be turning this, and if you look at the second page of your handout, you're going to be able to reference what I'm going to be doing here. So this is the second page of the handout, and so now what I'm going to show you how to do is to mark these corners. Well, there went all of my templates.
Got it. Keep going.
So I am first going to set it. If you read there, the design is based on a 12-inch square. You can do anything that you want. You can do any size. For what we're going to be doing for the borders, it would be in your best interest to make sure that it is divisible by 3 to be able to do the border we're going to be doing. So if you didn't do a 12-inch finish, do a 15-inch finish, and you'll see why here in a minute. So what I'm going to do is, I want to make sure I'm in the screen here. I'm coming right down here to the corner, and I am lining up this, and all I need to mark at this point is this one right here. And I don't even need down to this point. I just need out here. And then you're going to use the lines on your crosshair grid to get these 2 lines here. So what I first marked is this one. So I marked that in there. Now that's not the way the picture is set up, but that's the way, if it was set straight in this corner, that's what it would look like. And now I'm marking these 2 lines. So when you get to the next page, it's going to look like that. So I'm going to set this right here. I'm going to mark this line and this line. I'm going to, whoa, I didn't get that bottom one there. Oops, got to rotate. If you don't have a crosshair square, it's time. Okay? And I'll tell you what, So Steady has got some great specials going right now. When you order things, you're going to get gifts because they're going to be giving you some extra stuff. So all I'm going to do is mark that one.
And they can use the link that's on your shopping cart for those
Right,
deals.
use the link and you'll get the deals. That's for sure. And now I'm marking right down here in that corner. So I'm marking this one and this one. I may need to make that longer. I'm rotating. And the first one, I'm only marking 1 line. I'm setting it on their square. And I'm marking this line. And then I'm rotating it to get the lines exactly between there. We're going to go one more time. Just get the first line and then rotate it. Make sure you get both lined up, and then we need this one and this one. I'm going to go back and make sure I darken that a little bit. All right, so now we have got our marks there. And what we're going to need to do next, I like to do as much of my marking at the beginning unless it's going to confuse me. Now, if it's going to confuse me, then I don't do all of it. So what I'm going to do now is I have my thumbtack. Remember, I put it on a pen, so my thumbtack is on a piece of tape. So the sticky side is right here. You're looking at the sticky side, and that's the flat of my thumbtack. And I'm just going to set that right in that corner. And this is what is called our outer rim tool. Now, to be specific with it, it's called Circle Works outer rim tool. I don't know, you can see it there if I put it over there, but it's the outer rim tool. And what I do is when I'm going to be marking at the end of the flat end, I put this arrow so I know it's this way. I'm using the numbers on the same side as my arrow. So maybe this is easier. I'm going to use the flat end. I'm going to be measuring at the 5. And so when I'm using this end, I'm measuring back on that 5. That's the hole it's going to be going into. If I were using this like a compass and I was going to put my marking tool in the middle here, I have my arrow here because I would be using the 5 there. All right, so a lot of different options for you. And I find that it's easiest because this tool can totally mess you up. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to put it on the 5. Well, I guess I need to put it on the 10. That's right, I'm making this out here in the 5 inches, so I need to put it on the 10. Sorry about that.
Because it's a radius thing,
yeah,
right?
Exactly. I need a radius. This is actually the diameter that it's measuring. So right out there on all 5 of my marks, one is simply the sideline here, and then I've got this one. I'm just going to extend right there so that I know it's there. I'm going to extend that line there, and so that's 5 inches. So the next one we have to mark is 3 3/4. Now if you take 3 3/4, you are going to get, let's see, 3 is 6, and 3/4 times 2 is 1.5 inches. So we want 7.5 inches. So I'm putting it at the 7.5, and the only 2 I mark are this one and this one. Okay, so if you're looking at your pictures here, I put 5 inches because that's an exact 5 inches. If you're using the Circle Works tool, you're going to take the time and put a 10 right there because you're going to be putting it on the 10 on your tool. And this would be the 7.5 because that would be doubled. But if you're just using a measure to measure out there, it's these measurements. All right, so I'm going to my next corner. So you're going to get to watch this 4 times, so you should be good to understand it. So I'm using the flat end. So the first one I'm putting on 10. I'm marking down here. I'm marking on this line. I'm marking on this line, and this line. And then I'm putting it on. Someone shouted out there. Oops, not there, but right here. This is 7.5, and it's on just those 2 lines. And you're probably wondering, so how did I come up with this? Did I just sit down and mark some lines and play? I used my stitching line discs, and I sat down with templates, and in many cases, it's a matter of actually drawing things out and then measuring because I need to be able to tell you where it goes. So when I first did it, I didn't really have any measurements. I was going by my block size and where I wanted things to be. So sometimes you don't have the measurements. Now I wanted you to be able to turn around and repeat this project because hopefully you might do this for yourself, for a relative, as a gift. Maybe you've got a pastor or pastor's wife that you're wanting to give a unique gift to that's made by you. And this one is not going to take, it takes longer almost to mark everything than it does to stitch it out. But you've got your instructions there and your pictures. And after I show you this, you should be good to go. So now we're going to go to the center. And what I need is a measurement of 2 inches out. And I hope I gave a picture for that. I think I might have set it and put the marks, but I didn't put the measurements. So these measurements from the center out are 2 inches. So since that's a 4-inch circle, I'm going to use this same thing and I'm going to put it on 4, and I'm simply going to go around to those spots to make my marks.
So Judy wants to know the outer rim tool has holes in it, and it does, Judy, because it's actually more of just a measuring.
It's a measuring device. It's not something to stitch with. So like I've got a 4 right here. I don't know, I always have to have black. So I've got a 4 right there that I was using because I was using my flat end, so I put it in the 4 hole, and that's going to measure 2 inches out, and that's going to give me this 4-inch circle there. So I've got all my markings finished, so I don't need my outer rim tool. I don't need this one. And so since I always try to tell people to start in the center, I'm going to have you look at this picture right here, because we are going to stitch that right there to begin with. So what I'm going to do is make sure I've got everything laid out nice and flat. I'm going to come over here. We might need to adjust the camera, Megan.
I'm getting it.
And the template I'm going to use may be one you haven't ever used. And this is just simply called the 4-inch arc. Okay? This is the 4-inch arc. And I'm going to need my spacing gauge. And I am going to just pick one of these to put this thread down in. So I'm going to set down my needle, and I think you can see right inside there that I've got like a bullseye from where those cross. Needle down, needle up, and then I'm going to pull up my thread. Now, my thread is matching my backing, so you're probably not going to see it very well, but I do have a thread right there. And I'm going to go ahead and put my foot back down, my needle in that spot, and because I know my machine, I am going to reduce the top tension because my top thread is a little heavier weight than my bobbin thread. And I don't want my top thread showing on, or my bobbin thread showing on the top. So I'm going to turn this, and this just happens to be the way I'm used to my machine. You'll get used to your machine too, so that you know what to do with it. And so I want to hit that spot right there. So I am going to measure away from there, and it depends on my template. So I want to get this flat part up against the flat there. So now I've got flat over there, I've got flat right here, and I'm going to stitch and stop right in that point. I'm going to move around. I'm going to lower my tension just a smidge more. I'm going to set this up here, and I'm going to stitch right to that point. Measure this up. And right now, it looks like all I did was stitch a circle. Which really, it is what I did, but it's going to be pretty when I get done because I'm going to go back on the inside. And so I want that to come right back to that spot. And this time, I am going to use the inside. Now, I could use the outside, but I don't do as well going that way. If you do fine going that way, go for it. I'm going to think that I feel better doing it this way, so I'm setting it right up against there, and then right back here in the back, I am measuring that 1/4 of an inch. Now, I know where I need to stop, but this one is like I am stitching from edge to very edge, and I'm not real fond of falling off my template, so I got to make sure I stop.
So Connie has a question. Is the arc centered between the marks?
Yes, essentially it is, but you really don't have to look for it because no matter where it is on there, it's the same shape. So essentially it is, but you don't have to think of it that way. Can you guys see back there how this is not straight on that line? It's kind of at an angle. Again, I'm going to measure, make sure this is flat and not sticking up on my foot like it was there to start. Now I'm going to do the last one the opposite way so that you can see that it works either way. So if I put this in here, I need to allow like this. And I'm going to come back and it's going to do the same thing. And I'm right back where I started.
Oh, so the inside arc and the outside of that template are the same.
Right, this arc and this outside arc are the same thing. That's correct. Now, some of you have not seen how I tie this off, so I'm definitely going to tie it off for you so you can see that. So it's a matter of raising the needle and pulling the thread. I'm pulling that out. I'm getting a hold of it. And then I'm going to go right back to the same spot, put that needle in, and pull it up from the bobbin. So now when I pull on this thread, this right here that you really can't see is a bobbin thread. And so I'm pulling that out. I'm going to get my little snips here and snip that off.
And they're going to ask, these are the snippies, right?
Yeah, these are the snippies, but these are not my sharp ones. These are the ones that are called applique and lace. They have a little, they're like a little spatula in, so I don't have to worry about anything getting pricked or whatever. So those come in like 4 different ones. So what I'm doing now is I have all 4 of my threads. I make a loop and I pull that through, but don't tighten that loop. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my cinch side threading needle. I'll put it up there so you can see it real good. And I'm going to sit it right in my loop and right back down where my stitch needs to knot off. So you can see that knot is not firm yet because it's up against my needle. And then when I get down there, I let go of it. And now my knot's out there, which is exactly where I want it to be. Because now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that side threading needle and get all 4 of my threads and go right back in that very spot. Now, if I'm doing TempLee quilting, there's a possibility that these could get cut. I'm probably not going to cut out here. So I'm going to go out on the outer edge to secure my thread through those layers and pull this out because I don't want to open up one of those layers later and find my thread tails. So I'm going to pull this through and I'm going to just get my tails out of the way, which you don't need to see there, but I want to be able to pull this up so you can see right there's my knot. And as soon as I pull this, that knot goes right in under the fabric and you really don't see anything where that's at. So these are what they come like, cinch side threading needles. I will have a lot of this to do. I probably won't take the time to do it today on camera because I can leave my threads long, and you saw how I pulled that up. So now if you were to look at this, you don't really know where I started or I stopped, because obviously it was all in one point, but I have buried those threads. You probably can't see it real well, but this has given me a little definition here. This thread pulls down my fabric, so this has got some definition. So any questions on that? That's our center. That's how easy that is to do. So we're going to pick a corner, and we are first going to start out with the template that is called the 6-inch spiral. And the 6-inch spiral looks like this. That's got a lot of markings on it. We're not using any of those markings today because we drew a dot on there. So you're not going to do any of those markings. We're just going to use the curved edge. So what we're going to be doing is we drew this line right across the middle here. We're actually going to start at this spot Oh, nope, we got to do these first. I got ahead of myself. We're going to do the two little leaf shapes first. That's what we're going to do. So I'm going to be starting here, stitching out to there, stitching back to here, out to here. This is the 3 3/4 mark, and then back here. Now, why is it important that you get that 3 3/4? Well, the reason for that is I figured this out by playing with it. I did not want my arc stitching out into my border. I didn't want any of that coming out into the border. So that's the magic line right there. So I'm going to be coming into this corner here, and I'm going to pull that bobbin thread up. Got to get right in that corner. So I've got my bobbin thread there, and I'm coming right back to that spot. Make sure you keep it out there long enough. Needle back in, and then I'm simply because this has got stable tape on both sides, I'm going to be taking this and I'm going to turn this around so you guys can see it, and I am going to stitch right to that spot right there. Now, I can pretty much tell the intersection, but I'm going to draw it so you can see it. Do we have a question?
We do. Back on your circle. Why can't you backstitch versus not?
You can. That's perfectly up to you. When I have a high contrast thread, I usually knot because I don't want to see extra stitching there. But that's a great thing. You can do it. So what I'm doing is I'm in the corner, and I am going to measure 1/4 inch away from that spot. Remember, it's flat to flat, so it's not like you put it straight on that line. You need to have it so it's against your template. And so when I do that, I am going to get over here and make sure that I don't end up out on my border. Or you may need to adjust your measurement a little bit. I'm a little bit out there, but it's not going to matter because it's that green thread. I'm going to bring that right back, and down here you can see all I did was rotate so my hook was right around my foot. I'm getting right back into this spot here. And now I'm putting that hook around, and I'm going out to this one. Now you just have to keep straight which of your marks you're using so that you know. And so then I continue to rotate, and I want to get right back to here. So that particular one is finished also. So now that I'm right in that corner, there's nothing else I need to do with this. Obviously, you can embellish this if you wanted to. We may be cutting this out, so I really don't want to embellish it. But since it's in the corner, I'm basically just going to stitch a few stitches in my ditch and back to my corner, and then I am just going to cut that. Because no one is ever going to be able to tell that, and I can just cut off my threads where I started because I have overlapped. Now let's go to another corner and do the same thing. So I'm keeping things, nice and smooth here. I'm bringing this into that corner, setting this down, needle up. Definitely going to be a short thread, so I've got to get those tweezers. Pull those out and put that needle right back in the corner. Now, if you wanted to do a few stitches right there, you can, because we're right in that corner. And I'm going to turn this around again because I think it's just easier for everyone, you and me. And so now I'm going to stitch out to that spot. And I'm rotating so you can see it, and I'm going to stitch right back to that corner. One more to do here, and take a notice on what that looks like, how I have got this. It's not straight on that line, it's so that the flat is to the flat. So we're coming back in here. To that spot, and I'm just going to do that same thing again, stitch back and forth in the ditch, because we don't need to make this more work than it actually is. Always keep a check to make sure everything's laying nice and flat. You may want to put some, you could spray it together. You may want to put some pins in it. Once you got that center there, we can just keep making sure. It's so frustrating when you get finished and your backing was turned up under and got caught. I don't like to see grown women and men cry, so we don't want to do that. So I'm going to go ahead, put that needle down again, bring it up, foot up, pull up on my thread, pull out my bobbin. That time it was long enough for me. And make sure we're good and flat. Needle back down. I'll turn it just to the side so you can see it. We're going to put this here, and we're measuring out here. And this just keeps hooking around wherever your foot is, and we are going to again measure and come back to that intersection. Hook it around again, measure, stitch in that ditch, cut the thread. If you have a machine that has a thread cutter, these are perfect times to use it, because then that way the threads get held underneath so that you can just start again like I'm doing right now. Come to that corner, needle down, needle up, foot up, bring up that thread, pull it out, needle back down. This is why I like to do my lines at the beginning and get everything drawn out, because I can then just keep going instead of having to stop and redraw.
Patricia wants to know the name of those scissors or those snips that you're using.
I want to say these are what are called the lace and applique, because they have the little paddles on the end of it. Because I have 3 pairs, I use them all for different things. I'll just go ahead and show you these right now. These are the ones that I would use for TempLee. They are the ones that are sharp on the end, pointed, all snips, all look alike the rest of the way. It's just what they're like. And then the other ones that I have, well, where are they? Here they are. These are great for ripping out threads because they have a little hook on the end that you can hook right underneath there and then snip that thread. And I'm going to show you guys something because I don't know what I would do without this particular little item, and so you might as well know about it too. It's Christmas. We need stocking stuffers and all of that. This is what's called a stash and store. And my stash and store is loaded down with all my marking tools. It has these silicone little inserts and dividers. I guess mine's popped out here. There we go. Get it dressed back right for you guys. And this is only like 8 inches long, but look how much it holds. And everything is ready to grab onto. I'm not searching for it. It's all easy to get a hold of. So that is called a stash and store by It's So Emma.
And now that you showed it, I'm sure they're going to ask, where can they find that?
Well, usually you're going to be able to find it at your local quilt shop, which I definitely encourage you to support them. And if not, just send me an email. I'll get you in touch with somebody.
So we've got some of your fans who watched you before and said that last time they watched you, you had some blue scissors. I think they mean like your kindergarten scissors.
No, I know exactly what they're talking about. And in the video, somebody saw me use the green ones. The green ones are the old color. They're now blue. And I will show you those here in just a second. And those are what are great for, especially when you're doing those borders, to miter them, because you have to make sure you get them just exactly on the line, because that is the cutting line. And the ones they're referring to are these. Okay, they look like this and they're serrated. And so when I rub my hand across here, it's not like I'm rubbing it on a sharp blade. It is sharp, but because it's serrated, it's not hurting my hand in any way, shape, or form. And so these are the serrated scissors. I don't know if they're on the Westerly site. They may be on there because we've had them before. And I have some on my site. They're made by Clover, so you can see right there. But I love those serrated scissors. The ones I showed in the video, I shouldn't have used those because that's what the old color is, but now they're blue like this. So somebody asked me what those green scissors were, and I had to tell them, you know, that they're actually the ones that are now blue. All right, it's always great. I'm one of those people that if you could see my scissor collection, you would just pass out. But
if
scissors,
we could see all your scissor collection.
Yeah,
it's in too many different places.
It's in a lot of places, but I use them all, and they're usually where they're used the most. So at whatever machine I would use them the most for whatever I'm doing at that machine. All right, so I am now going to switch back to my 4-inch arc. And so this is the time that I am going to be using this diagram that I tried to show you a second ago. And so what I'm going to be doing is, this is my straight line that goes across here from the center. I'm going to start up here, I'm going to stitch down to here, and then I'm going to be coming around, making this chain right here, turning back around and coming back there, and that's my stopping point. And then I will rotate and I will come and do the same thing again. So I love this little tool because it's just, there's other options. Obviously you can get a different type of tool to use there, but it's why, you know, it's easy. It's one that you can hold easily in your hand. It gives you a pretty little chain effect. And obviously if you get much bigger in your spacing, you're not going to use that one. You're going to get something else. And since I'm not going to be coming back exactly to this point, when I put this needle down, I'm going to do just a little bit of stitching right there in the border. I'm going to set this up against here, and I want to come right back to there. So that's where you've got to leave the spacing out into the border. Now notice again, it's not straight, it's at an angle, because this is just going to create a little tiny loop. And so then it's an inch away. Linda is asking how far away it is. When you marked all this, it's an inch away because we measured out 5 inches. 6 inches was to the center, and then obviously to the other side. So it's just a matter of the marks that we made create the distance there. We're going to come to this one. These are all the 5-inch marks that we're doing across here. So I'm going to set this in there. Again, remembering to flat. I'm going to come to that point. I'm going to bring this over here. It's always interesting to me how when I do one side, it's not exciting at all. It just doesn't look like anything. And now you can go back this way. I want you to be able to see it. So I am going to turn this around, and you can see it just looks like a little kind of scallopy line, which is pretty. No problem with that. But I want to make it so it looks like a little chain. So I'm back to that spot. I'm measuring 1/4 of an inch off of this spot. Quarter of an inch. And then I'm going to be done right there. So I have options. I could stitch over here. I kind of like to just finish this one off. And I started to punch onto my camera. I believe maybe the cutter's right here. So you can see now what that looks like. How do you like that? Fun little design there. You could then, if we do our TempLee, we can cut those out. We can cut this out. You know, you can do whatever you want. You can add some stuff in there if you want. I've got 4 more of these. So you're going to know how to do this for sure, because I'm coming to that point right there, which is the same starting point.
So the question has come up, could you go all the way around and then come all the way back so you don't have to break your threads?
Not really. And that's because of this one.
So that, the one that's on the, in the middle of all of them, is it longer or different than the rest?
It's not different. It's just that it doesn't have the other side. So, you know, you can figure out, you might be able to go farther than I did. But it doesn't have something to come back to that.
So you could probably go all the way around just with the tops.
Correct.
But you would then have to go
Come
back around.
And it's actually
so it's kind
easier.
of pointless.
Yeah.
Good question though.
Yeah, good question. And you know what I love about it? I don't know who asked it, but it shows you're thinking how you need to be thinking. So thanks for asking that.
That was Michelle.
Because that's what you need to do, is how can I do as much as I can without stopping and starting? So we're going to come here. We're going to go to there. And notice I just pretty much keep my spacing gauge right there in my hand, because it's not very long before I need it again. I'm going to turn this around. And I will tell you another thing that's pretty cool. Haven't gotten to this one yet, but just going to throw it out there because some of you may want to do it, is add a piece of batting in here, just that 12 inches, and then this will be like a trapunto. This will definitely be thicker than out here in the border. So, you know, there's just so many things we can do with template quilting that we're just now getting started. I had another idea for tonight, and I decided I didn't have the time to develop it like I wanted to, but it's going to be coming. I'm not going to let that cat out of the bag yet, but I know what I can do to do that.
So Marjorie wants to know, do the templates that you're using come in a set?
Yes, this is the templates that I'm using today are all part of Sampler Set 1. And I did that because I wanted you all, most everybody starts with Sampler Set 1, and I wanted you to be able to turn around and do this project. So that's why I use templates from Sampler Set 1.
The only thing that doesn't come in Sampler Set 1 is the outer rim tool,
The outer rim
right?
tool, and you can use a ruler to do what we did there. So that would not matter. So now I'm going to set this one down, and I'm going to stitch in the ditch, just like 2 or 3 stitches. Make sure I'm right at that point. I'm going to cut this thread, or not cut this, but measure this. I'm going to turn. Now, I was almost tempted to just tell Megan, go turn the iron on so we can iron off these lines. I will tell you what I have to do to make sure I don't mess this up, is I have to say, don't use this iron. Because if I go iron these right now, I can't do my TempLee. I wouldn't be able to iron. I wouldn't be able to do any of my TempLee at all. I'd have all of that underneath there for absolutely no reason at all, because I would have pressed it all together.
Which is also why I made sure I turned off all the irons as well.
Right, so we don't have any irons on at all, so hopefully it's like, okay, think this through. And I have actually made myself a little tent card that I set right by my iron. Don't use me! Some of you may be wondering what threads I'm using. I am actually using a 40 weight quilting thread from Metler. Let's see, I want to make sure. Yes, it's a Metler 40 weight quilting thread. So now I'm back to where I started. I'm going to get straight on here so I can just get right in my border there. And I'm going to cut that thread. I did the same thing at the beginning, so I can go ahead and cut this beginning thread also. That one was already cut. And I only have one more to do. And then we're going to do the border. So you're going to see how fast you actually could do this project. So I'm going to come over here, set this down, needle up. I know some of you are like, how many times is she going to say that? Well, some people are new and they don't know all these practices. And you know, it's just a good reminder so that you know how to use your tools to your advantage. So
Cindy wants to know if I and Stacy are sisters because we sound alike. Nope, we're not. We've actually really never even met except for YouTube and or our video chats and things. So
I'll line this up. We're going to come over here. And you can see now I'm back to where we started. But I got to go back over here to finish off this little chain. You can do this same type of a chain in a bigger form by using your, you could even use your straight edge arc, the arc side. You could use the 6-inch spiral that I use to make the leaves. If it's got a curve, I've probably tried it.
So tell us again about your thread. Is it 60 or 40?
It is 40 weight.
Okay.
So let me check for sure. Yes, this is 40 weight Metler quilting thread. It's 100% cotton.
Do you use poly thread?
You can. That's what I recommend people start with. Yes. So you can use anything. I could use my embroidery threads if I want to. If I want to get a shine, I can use metallic threads. I can do, you know, pretty much anything that I want to, because quilting is an art form and you can do whatever you want. So our center there is finished with the stitching. And so we're ready to do the border. So again, I'm going to make sure everything is laid out nice and neat. And believe it or not, we really don't have any measuring to do on this border at all, because this is 12 inches from corner to corner, and our template is 3 inches. Each of our hills, sorry you guys, I thought you could see there. This is 12 from corner to corner, and our template is 3. So we're just simply going to be doing 4 of those across there. And I'm going to show you how you can do the little design in the corner. So if I take these pages here and get down to page number 7, you can see I have got 4 of the clamshells, and then I've got this in the corner. Now what I did, I actually have etched mine, and so you can do whatever you want. But this measurement to that line, if you were to look at your templates, it does not have that line on it. That line is on mine because I etched it on there. Now, I made this so it's to size. So if you want to set yours right on top of there, you're going to be able to use this picture, because if yours printed out correctly, that's exactly to size. And then what you're going to do is, I like to use, if you want to do this, do not do this if you don't want to. You are going to turn it upside down so that the etchings, you can feel them across here. And I'm going to lay this on right like so. And I'm simply going to use another straight edge. It could be another template that's straight. I'm going to lay it right on that line, and I use an X-Acto knife. This is like a little box cutter, and I just go right along there. Now what I recommend you do, first of all, before you etch it, is to make sure that that's what you want to do. I know I use it a lot, so I did it. But for visual today, and what you can do is, you're all familiar with ruler stickers probably by now. And so you can measure down that 1/2 inch. So you can measure from the top hill down 1/2 inch, and then simply put a little tiny marker there, one of your ruler stickers, so that you know exactly where that is. And so that's why I showed those arrows in the picture there. So that you would know where to put those. So from the top edge to where we're going to be is 1/2 inch. And I've just put the little ruler stickers there so that you could see that. So I'm going to take my template now. I can go left, I can go right, I can do whatever I want, but I'm just going to simply start in one of the corners. So I'm going to get my stuff over here so that it's out of my way. And I'm going to take this and set it right in that same corner of where I would have started one of my other designs. And we will come back here. We will do this all the way around and come right back to this spot. So because it's in that border there, I'm going to go ahead and knot it, just because I don't want a whole lot of fill there. I've already done some, and so I could just back and forth stitch. In fact, yeah, that's what no, I'm going to knot, because I want to show you again, for those of you that have not seen the cinch needles.
So what if somebody does not have the beginning tools, the sampler set? Is there another tool they could use for that 4-inch arc that would have the same measurement?
No, not that I know of. Now you might be able to do something like this one here. It'll be a bigger, you could use the scallop on here, but most likely if you don't have the 4-inch arc, you don't have this one either. So I will tell you the advantage. You want to find my book, there it is right there, perfect. When you get the ruler work kit, you're going to get this book, or you can buy this book by itself. So I would recommend that you get started with this book, because this is going to tell you how to use all of the templates. And honestly, when I'm doing a class, I probably hearken back to these templates most of the time, because I assume most everyone has them. So that's why I've used these tonight, because I wanted, you guys to be able to get going with them. Now, all I'm doing with this is this line right here that is in between. It's 1/4 inch up from the bottom of this little hook here. So that way that line is going right on my border seam. And so from now, when I come down in this template, it's going to land right in that border seam, because it's 1/4 inch away. Now over here, that should be right in the middle. Now it's not right now, but it might be when I get there. And I know that sounds crazy, but if it's not, I am going to stop at the top of this hill and reposition. So watch how I do this. I'm going around and down. I'm looking over here. There's the line and there's my line. So I'm going to come to the top of this hill right here and stop, and I'm going to move this over so that that line is right on that line. And nobody is ever going to know that there's like 2 stitches less in this side. So now what I'm doing is I'm coming down and I'm dead center. I'm going to go back over here. I'm going to line up that line. And what's happened is, as I've quilted in here, it's drawn up a little bit, which is okay because I'm telling you how to fix it. Now I can already see this is off over here, so this time I'm going to fix it on the first hill. Doesn't really matter. I'm just showing you how that you can get that so that everything is laying right where you want it to lay. Now when I get back down in this spot, I am going to now take this template where those little lines are, and I am going to position that line, that's why I have that point, right on my diagonal. So that's a miter out there. I've got it hooked around here, and I'm putting that right on the diagonal. And I'm going to stitch till my needle is right in that seam. And then I'm simply going to rotate this so you can see it. And I'm going to put this around here. Oh, I don't have any marks. Well, that's what I'm going to do is come back to this one, and I can either use my marks or I can use, and it's going to be the same either way. I just need to get back to that point.
We did have a viewer ask, how would you do this on a quilt that you could not rotate? Something in a bigger quilt?
Well, what I've done right here, you could do it. It's just that you would have to be very, very familiar with your templates and know how to manipulate them. But what I've done here is so that you can be making like smaller projects and get the hang of what you're doing. So yes, you would have to know a little bit, more about what's going on there with your templates so that you don't rotate. Now you have to remember, part of the reason I'm rotating is so that you can see it. If I didn't rotate, you wouldn't be able to see what I'm doing. So this next time, I'll just try to do it without rotating. You can see I've got to match up over here. So I'm going to go to the top of the first hill. And you probably notice that when I'm doing this, I'm making sure my fabric is laying out nice and flat. Again, I could do this without rotating, but you wouldn't be able to see it, and I want you to learn how to do it. So I'm putting this around that foot, and I'm putting that line right on top of that diagonal seam. I won't rotate so you can see that I can come right back here. I'm going to put that on that line and come right back to that spot. We're going to continue on down here. I think this is a really good indication as to why you want to quilt your center first. Oh, I don't have to move that yet, but I do need to stop at the top because this needs to be shifted over. Oh, that one's right on, so I don't even need to shift that one. am going to stop here and get everything laid back nice and flat. Shifting again so that you can see what we're doing. Laying that up there. And the reason I wanted to do this is because everybody always asks, so what do I do with the design in the corners? Well, I'm trying to help you with that so that you can see that you can take the same template and get similar shaping just by figuring out, and again, I did it on paper with a stitching line disc so that I wasn't on my fabric trying to manipulate everything and figure out measuring and all of that kind of thing.
Well, Penny is glad that you're doing this kind of edging because she just did this the other day but had problems with the corners. So now, watching you, she knows what she can do in the corners.
Perfect. Thank you. This is our last one coming up here. So we will have completed all of that. And so I'm going to line up, do my first one. Scoot over to correct. And I'm back down in that very corner. So I'm going to flip it this way so you can see we've got a little bit of maybe puckering, whatever, but that's going to work its way out because I'm going to watch it as I go. I'm going to take this and lay this nice and flat. Where's my seam? My gosh, right there. Couldn't tell where it was. And we're going to turn this just a smidge here so that we can put this on. And this is going to go back to touch our seam. That looks like a good 1/4 of an inch, so I really don't need to measure it. And I'm right back to where I started, went all the way around. I'm just going back and forth in that corner so I can cut it. Oh, I was going to show you guys how, well, that's not going to happen because I already did that. So I've secured that. And so now, you want to move things, Megan, a little bit so they can see the whole thing? So basically, everyone, in less than, well, it's about an hour, we have done this 12-inch top that you could then use as gift giving to someone. Now, obviously, it's not finished. We got a little bit more to do, but you marked it. You have stitched it. We don't want to do any cutting, and I have not set the edges up for any cutting out, so we won't be cutting out anything out here. But we're going to start here in the center, and I think because of what I know, it would be better. We're not going to be cutting this out, so we probably want to leave this in the middle and cut these sections. So, am I on the good screen there, Megan? Can they see?
You are right in the middle.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a sharp seam ripper, and if you want to get closer on that, you can. I'm going to take a sharp seam ripper, and because I can do this back and forth real easy, I know that it's on fabric, because if not, it would be catching on my batting. So I'm just going to slice that so that you can see it. I'm going to rotate again. I'm going to take this and I'm going to go underneath. You know, see how I just kind of lift it up and then I go back and forth to make sure it's not catching and batting, and I slice it. We're good. And so that's where these come in. Now when you order these, make sure you don't pick up, if you're on my website, what are called snippies. Snippies are little thread cutters that are like $2.95. These are a bit more expensive than that. And so you want to make sure you get the right ones, because those others, you're not going to be able to do what I'm doing right here. And so I'm going to try and rotate right on top of that. And you can see how I'm just using my fingers and tweezing right up to the edge there.
Some of them, I think, forgot maybe that we were doing TempLee. So now this is like a little surprise.
So I'm just cutting that out, and I may need to cut just a little bit more than I did the first round. Just make sure you do not cut your stitching. You can always go back and do a little bit more. So I've cut this one, and I'm going to go around here. And you can see again how I just tweeze that like back and forth. It's so much easier than if you have big scissors that you have your hands in and you're constantly having to open and close them. Now I will tell you, I won't do a whole lot of this because I'm farther away from it than I want to be, and so I got kind of some nasty looking thing right there. I got it fixed, but even right here, I like to kind of get my nose right up in my work, and so on the camera I can't really do that. But you just want to make sure, because this is kind of like a raw edge reverse applique. There's a little piece there that needs to come off.
What do you do, Colleen is asking, if you do snip your stitches?
If you snip your stitches and it's pretty long, I actually put a piece of heat and bond behind it. But that's another reason I like to have the fusible side of my fleece up, because when I stitch or press this, it's going to fuse down to that. But you can put a little Fray check on it if you do it. I've done it many times, people. I tell you, I've done it many times. So it's not like it's ruined or it can't be recovered. Am I still on screen there?
Yep.
So I test it, I cut, I lift up. It takes less time if you just do all your little testing here and your slicing, and then go back and do your cutting. And then just because I want you to see what one of these rings looks like, some of you probably just about jump every time I slice. But you notice I am testing it.
Because again, we don't want a grown woman crying.
Have you ever seen me? Yeah, she has. So I'm going to slice this one here, but this one I'm only cutting, and I don't think I would recommend you guys do that because of it being a border.
They can't see, but if you want to get down in, because you like to
All
get
right,
your nose
there.
in it. There you
Okay.
go, perfect. Colleen also asked, do you use Fray check if you snip the threads?
Yes. I'm going to tell you guys, I wouldn't do this one. I wish I hadn't have. Don't do this one. I can't reverse it now, but don't do it. I'll have to do all of them.
And is it just because it's too small?
It's small and it's not pretty.
Okay.
I mean, it's hard to know sometimes until you've already done it. So let me be your guinea pig and don't do that one.
So for those who are tuning in or tuned in late and are wondering if this video is going to be posted, so you can watch it later, it will be posted here in the So Steady Facebook archives. It will also be on Donnell's YouTube channel and a couple other various places. So don't worry if you missed the beginning. You will have multiple chances and multiple places to rewatch it. I'm going to have to move this so they can see what you're doing. Your chain's looking really pretty.
Just remember, don't do this one, you guys. Don't do that part of the chain.
Can you feel them? I feel like they're all holding their breath watching you.
I'm holding my breath, so. Now, another thing I'm going to tell you is, you may want to, I couldn't do it today, but it's pretty to match the thread to your backing fabric, and then you don't see the stitching at all. All you see is the cutout. But if I'd have done that, you couldn't see what I was doing, so I couldn't do that for the demo. But I do like to do that. Now let's finish out this here.
We have a couple who are getting anxiety just watching you.
Anxiety? No. When you have the right little scissors and tools, this is really easy to do. Get yourself a good sharp seam ripper, because that makes a big difference too.
Dolly says she's glad to hear this will be posted so that she can have you right next to her when she
There
does
you
this
go,
again.
and while you're doing it, you can just pause me. You can say, Donnell, be quiet. I'm ready to sew.
And that's kind of the fun of these virtual classes. That's one thing you don't get in the in-person ones, is you can pause it and re-listen to it.
So there's my center, and there's that. And so I think what I probably need to cut out, we'll just start with these two pieces.
Denise wants to know, could you do decorative stitches over the cutouts?
Yes, you can, and I know a lot of people have done that. They've gone back and stitched around this with a decorative stitch. So yes, you certainly can. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing here.
I zoomed it back out so they can see.
Okay. So I'm coming down here. So there's what you have there. But like I said, again, you would not hardly see anything but the design if you stitched with thread that matched your background.
They are liking what they see. They're giving you lots of likes and thumbs up.
So as I've been doing this, you guys, I've been sitting here going, should I leave that little space there? And I think I will, just because it's so little.
I think you would have the same problem as you
I'd
had
have the
left.
same problem as I had there. So
Connie wants to know, would you press all of this before you did the decorative stitching? Since it's got that.
yes.
Okay.
So I'm going to cut just a smidge closer right there. That looks better. So that's what you're going to have. We got the center and one corner done there. And this is now when you would press. I would also get my lines out, obviously. Like I said, don't do this one. I have to now. I will probably only do it over here, not here and here, because I'm not real fond of what that did. So I don't have to do it in all four. I can do it just over here.
I have a question from D. If you press after cutting it out, don't you lose some of the loft?
I don't have an option on this one. I don't think you'll lose much loft, but I don't have an option on this one because that's the reason I put the heat and bond on the back of it. There's nowhere you can see it now because I've got everything stitched down. But there's heat and bond on the back of this, and that's what's going to fuse down these raw edges.
So for those of us who don't know, what is the loft?
The loft is the thickness here, where I said it kind of gives you a little bit of thickness.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, looky there, I learned something new.
There you go. So obviously we finished out our border here. When I finish with cutting all of this out, or I could even stop and do it now, I'm going to be cutting up next to the border here. So I'm going to lay this back, and I'm going to use my, make sure it's back far enough, and I am going to use my straight edge, my long straight edge and my rotary cutter and cut off this batting, and then I will leave it 1.5 inches longer on the other side. So Megan, if you want to take this and follow me, I'm going to show them how I would cut that.
All right, you go first and I'll follow you.
You know what, I could bring, no, I don't have a small enough mat, so we're going to have to go over to the cutting station.
We're going on a field trip, guys.
Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to fold this all back underneath there. And my border, because it was 4 inches to start with, should be 3 3/4. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure that 3 3/4. And if there's anything like the little tips up there or anything down here that need to get cut off, I'm going to cut them off. I think I'm actually going to go to 3 1/2. So that will just even everything up. My backing is pulled to the back. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay this back out. And I'm going to measure 1 1/2 inches away from that. Because that's what I need to finish the way I use the Quick Easy Miter binding tool. So that side is ready. We're going to take this and flip this to the back. Make sure we get it all back around there.
Because again, we don't want to see a grown woman cry.
1, 2, 3 1/2. So I'm measuring right from the inside there. And you can see I'm just straightening up basically my edge out there. And then I'm going to take this and lay it out and measure out 1 1/2 inches. Nice new cutter blade. Makes it so nice. Lay that all back. 3 1/2. Always check. 1, 2, 3 1/2.
So Linda wants to know, is our white cutting mat separate from our table? And yes, it is, right?
Yes, it is. And then this is 1 1/2 inches here. So I can do all of this and have it ready to do my border on. Now you can see how that one's got that was the wonky one up there. It's not going to matter once I get this laid back.
Someone is asking what kind of batting we used, and I'm looking here. It's a
Thermolam
Thermolam
You
Plus.
can show them, Megan, if you want to just show them right there what it is.
Right there it is. That is what we used.
So you can see up here more is getting cut off. And that will just straighten everything out.
Where did we get our cutting mats from? Where can they order them from?
Again, if they'll just email me, I'll tell them of that. You can check your local quilt stores. But we can, show them what the different options. This one came from Quilter's Rule. I have some that come from Arrow. So I guess we're pretty much finished tonight, Megan. You can put that on there so they can see the whole thing. And that's what we have. This is going to get turned like this and come around right like that.
Ooh, it's going to be so pretty.
And we will be mitering these corners with the Quick Easy Miter binding tool. And if you want to see the border tool that does the borders like this, that is over on our YouTube page, Template Quilting with Donnell McAdams. And we will soon have up on there how to do the mitered binding. So thank you for watching tonight. Everybody have a great week. I hope you had a very happy Thanksgiving. And we'll see you next Saturday. Bye for now.